Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of B is for Build. This is the story of how the single-seater turned the last 24 hours to finish itself into 3.5 days of craziness. I do apologize. At the time of filming this, I was 3 days with almost no sleep, and I forgot to do an intro, so there you go. This is B is for Build. This is the single-seater, and we're about to get it done. We got Zane here wrapping up the masking on all the FDF race shop parts so we don't get any of that nice powder coating, covered in crazy overspray, and we're hitting high fill primer on a lot of our body fill spots just to make sure that that's all sanded up nicely and we got the good transitions that we were looking for. And you can see we're working on our this is kind of like a fender plate block off, and then this is modifying so we have a little bit more room in the dash by cutting that V. Right about here you can see I'm starting to try to drill a hole in the car. Man, did this lead into a nightmare. All right, Oscar, gentleman's bet, fuel filler neck and fuel filler cap done in 30 minutes or less, or pizza's free. No, you owe me $1. Sure, deal. Ready, set, go. That's how delirious I was. I thought I could do the fuel filler neck and plumb it into the fuel tank in 30 minutes or less. Or pizza was free, or Oscar owed me $1, or what? We already had pizza in the shop. I don't even know what I was betting for. Of course, when you're running this many hours, you have unlimited amounts of pizza in the shop at all times. This thing put up a fight like I had never seen before. Between hole saw blades not wanting to cut at all, me probably in the end using a wood cutting blade, Oscar got paid. Being the gentleman he is, he didn't want it, but he also didn't know why I was paying him because the bet was I owed him pizza, not $1. But doesn't matter. Working on this front plate here, this is just a pretty decorative thing that I wanted to have on there. It was part of the rendering, and I figured we got to send it, do everything that's on the rendering. Got that done, got that bolted into the front end. Moving on to the rear wing deck, it had a secondary rear deck that I wanted to make out of sheet metal, so we were walking away from the 1/2 inch thick aluminum. Had to put some supports in there so it had enough rigidity, but it actually turned out looking really, really cool in the end, so I was really happy about that. And that just gets bolted straight into the side wings that you saw us install in the last episode. Looks pretty good. Then the part of the wing that really makes it stand out are these little swoop down things that kind of just cut down and jog down. So I'm cutting those out of aluminum. I'm kind of scoring the bend marks and walking over to our Harbor Freight brake press over there and just putting a nice little bend in them. 245, so it equals a 90-degree bend, and we're set on those. Those I really wanted to have removable, but we ran out of time, so we just decided, you know what, let's weld them in. So this is a welded in feature of the single seater. If we need to take the wing apart now, it will be tricky. There will be some unwelding to do. Finally came time to say goodbye to the end of the frame rails that were sticking out extra. My design called for a nice little 45-degree slant down thing. So I just made the chop, cut up some nice 2-inch fresh metal to cap those off, and welded that all in there. We're jumping into a thing here that has no name. It's like a rear quarter panel decorative over fin vent cap. It's a 2-step piece, and we're working on step 1. How are we going to mount this thing into the car so it's removable, because that whole rear hatch is removable to service the engine. So you can see that we've got these pop-in snap clips that we've used for hoods lots of times before with lots of success. We're welding in the studs here at exactly the right angle, so now this piece kind of snaps on in a 3-piece configuration and can be held into the car nice and securely. There's also another piece that was designed to go over and on top of this, be integrated into it, but to be quite frank, we just were way too low on time, and I thought these look cool, these look good enough, so we're gonna have to kind of call it here. This is where I started having to kind of come up short on features if we ever wanted to have a chance of getting the car done, because we're about 12 hours from transport coming and we have no paint on the car whatsoever. So these things were on there, they were looking good, but we knew that we had no shot of building the secondary piece. And I'll tell you a little bit about those later. Spoiler alert, it didn't end well. So what we're doing is we're testing out Steel It Black on the car, just straight out of the can. The game plan was this car was designed to be all matte colors. So Steel It Black, and then we had an orange matte and a red matte on the wing. And I painted the front, and I stepped back and I took a look at it after it dried. Right here it's dry, and I thought, Ronald McDonald, this is chaos. When all else fails, just go black. You're sitting here on no sleep. Transporter's coming in 6 hours. I had a ton of black paint from Steal It. I was like, this Ronald McDonald front fin does not look good. The front spoiler being like that just does not look good. So what I did was I kind of went into the computer, double checked my rendering that I had, and I looked at it in a grayscale. So it was just blacks and grays. And I said, you know what, that I think is gonna look a little bit better. So I hit the whole car with Steal It out of a gun, which we'd never done before. Rather than doing it out of the rattle cans, we ran out, to be quite frank. So I hit it all out of the gun. Also, I had to turn the gun settings to be very, very different than you usually would, because I cannot atomize the paint or I risk getting overspray over to the Mustang on the other side. And although this is a super cool build, it's a personal fun project for me, nothing is gonna risk messing up that Mustang at this point. Worth adding, while this is all going on, the Mustang doesn't run, and we're trying to troubleshoot the hell out of that and finish up the back end of that. So that was tough. That was a really, really tough thing where I'm jumping back and forth. But back to the single seater here. We're working on, now I need that exhaust. I told you guys forever I would finish the exhaust. We wouldn't have this wonky, wobbly, offset exhaust. And what I was doing the whole time though is testing. Do these two, they call them race mufflers, but one's basically a resonator and the other one's a air quote race muffler. Did they set the right pitch and tone for the car that I wanted? And they did. So then I knew I could just build two little shorties with up kicks that were similar to the Huracan, and I'll show you that later. Zane and I just did a moment of truth type of thing where we had kind of measured out and thought that the seat would fit in there, but we didn't know for sure. So I said, you know what, we should get the seat in the car now that all the painting is done and make sure it fits, make sure we can get in here before we have to cut the roof off of it and weld it back on there. That was sketchy. We were not sure if that seat was going to fit, but we actually managed to get it in and out without too much of a hassle, which is really, really cool. So now I'm just welding out that exhaust. I got 45-degree up bends that kick out, and I designed these ones so they don't collect water either. If water gets in them, it will not enter the engine in any way. It'll just spill right back out the back. So now you can see I'm inside the car, burning the hell out of myself with the welder, putting the interior panels in. And then we're kind of test bolting all the other panels in. And it's hard to see on camera here, but we have black for the main body, black for the fins, but a gray, Steal It gray, for the top. So basically the top hatch and the part that goes over your head is gray. And there's our exhaust on there, a little bit of angle grinding, and a quick transition to the cars at SEMA. I'm just gonna pause the video right here so I can just tell you a little bit about how good this car is driving. Between then and now, what I know now right where this car is parked is this car is being an awesome driver, runner. It's doing everything that we asked for it as far as mechanically being a car, which is super cool for a car that had never been tested, never got a proper shakedown. Is it very, very low? Yes. Is it too low? No. And it drives like a bat out of hell. It's so much fun to drive. So we took this thing right off the transport truck, and Oscar said, man, there's a lot of rust on those rotors. It doesn't look good. And I said, I agree. I don't think anybody's gonna get mad if I just drive the crap out of this car in this parking lot right here. So as everybody's unloading their SEMA cars and SEMA builds, I'm just ripping it in the single seater, doing 70-mile-an-hour pulls, 70 to 0, over and over and over again in the parking lot for the SEMA loading unloading zone. The car did phenomenally. And you'll see in the SEMA wrap up that we got to have some more fun with that. So now I know I got a good runner, a good driver, and I'm looking at the car, and what you can't see on camera here is that Steal It, the way that it went on, I wasn't able to spray it per the instructions of Steal It and how they wanted it to go on, and you can see right where the cockpit just reaches the end in that little V part, there's some overspray marks. There was about 2 of those on the car, and that was enough for me. Even though I did have cans of Steal It right there and I could have just fixed it myself, honestly, I said, I think I want to wrap this thing. I think I want to wrap this thing. So we had my buddy Fred at Wrapco order wrap into Vegas. Kyle went and picked it up. In the background, we're constantly working on the Mustang to get it done, but this was a dedicated time. So we called all hands on deck. What we got here is 2 of Chris Fix's crew. We have Garrett and Pierce here working with me, and then we got Kyle working with me and Oscar working with me for most of this time before they peeled off to work on the Burnt Con behind you, behind me, behind us, behind the camera. And what we're doing is, where it was matte black, we just gave it a nice sand up, and we just wanted to go gloss black. And where it was gray, we just gave it a nice quick little sand up for any overspray marks, and we wanted to go with this gunmetal gray color. Now, I'll tell at the very end of this video, we'll talk about this as far as a quick game time decision, how it really did work out. But at this time of the show, this car was getting all of the attention in the world. People are like, Mustang? What Mustang? Nobody cared about the Mustang. Everybody that came out of those doors to your right loved talking about this car And the staff at the convention center, oh my God, they love this car. It was unbelievable, the attention it was getting. So right here, you can see that the crew, we have a total change up. We've got this guy over here that looks like a professional because he is one hell of a professional. This is Sam from CW Wraps. Him and his team walked by and saw how far we had gotten and what time of day it was. And he said, you guys are gonna need some help. And so I said, you know, I'm not at a point to turn down help right now. Any help you got, I will take it. And then he saw how big the project said, and if we don't have any shot of finishing tonight, I'm just gonna have to speed wrap this whole car. And I said, have at it. If there's anything I can do to help, let me know. But I had about 35 to 50 decals to put on this car still. So I was thinking decals while the guys are working on Huracan and LED underglow and stuff like that. And Sam from CW Wrap is here saving our ass. And let me pause real quick to say, this guy was so nice to do what he did. He could have been out enjoying Vegas and everything like that. And honestly, it's getting kind of cold at this time. We were under-tooled. We did not have a blowtorch. We did not have any way to heat the wrap, which was we had to be able to do that. He had the tools that he needed. He's got 10 years of experience, and he was just the nicest guy in the world to literally just come save our ass. And that's what the car community is about. That's what SEMA is about. But it's not every day you run into a guy that's this cool. So there's a link in the description. He's in the Idaho area, but he's also a absolute master rapper. And it was really cool to get to see him work. And I just can't thank him and his team enough for literally saving our ass. Because another thing that he showed us is how little vinyl we had extra. We had like maybe 2 square feet of vinyl extra. So if we did this ourselves with the amount of waste that we have vinyl wrapping, we would have had 3/4 of a car vinyl wrapped, and it would have been really embarrassing because we sanded up our matte black, and so we would have had like bad sand marks and stuff left in the car. It would have been terrible. So Sam does his work until midnight. Helped us out from probably 4 in the afternoon until midnight, non-stop speed wrapping the hell out of this car. It was super cool. We lended a hand where we could, but honestly, it wasn't much. He is a true pro running and gunning and getting it done. And you can see I'm getting decals in where I can after a piece has been wrapped, and I'm starting to lay out the decals and where everything I want to go. And I'm gonna pause the video right here, and you'll notice right where that 404 and that mow tool is, where's our overdeck fin thing? That thing that has no name? Yeah, those snap clips that we used, when they're under pressure and not a lot of vibration, like something like holding like a hood, they seem to perform really well. We've never had a problem with them holding hoods. They hold our Mustang hood in the back. They hold our R69 hood in the back. We've never had a problem. The vibrations, the trailering, the trucking, everything, when we got to SEMA, one had completely blown off. And it wasn't our fault for not tightening the clips or anything. The clips blew in half and the piece flew off. Thankfully didn't hurt anyone or anybody's property, but that is a dangerous thing. That's not our style. That sucks that happened, and that's a lesson that we had to learn the hard way. So we got to SEMA and we're -2 body panels and big scratch marks in the car. Another reason that I really wanted to hit it with this vinyl wrap. So the car wasn't as complete as it should have been. We didn't have every piece that we had made on the car. That's a little bit of a bummer, but sometimes, you know, you just got to work with the hand that you're dealt when you get to SEMA, and you're just making it happen. And speaking of making it happen, here we go. Sam is finishing up the wrap, and then I stay till about maybe 1 a.m. doing decaling while the guys are working on the Mustang inside. This thing came down to the line just like the Mustang. 1 a.m. finish time for this, 6 a.m. finish time for the Mustang, 7 a.m. Crowds are out around the car, and people are loving it. People love that it's different. It's not the same old SEMA stuff that everybody else is seeing, and they had a lot of fun just looking around the car, but it definitely came down to the wire. Now, I told you guys that we would talk a little bit about the matte black versus the gloss and everything like that. This thing looks great in gloss. It looks cool. I think it looks cooler in matte black. People wanted to see it look clean. I wanted to see it look really rough and really rugged and more apocalyptic. But everybody comments that they didn't want to see that. So I took your guys' advice, and where the advice was the best advice ever on, say, the R69 GTR, I think here it made it only about 2% worse. I think it could be 2% better if we go back to that matte black and we focus on actually purposefully making things a little bit rougher around the edges. And we have some worn in areas and some stuff so it looks more unfinished than finished. Putting the gloss on here is cool, and the car looks amazing. Don't get me wrong, people loved it. But I think we could make it look even better and more fit the part of the apocalyptic home-built race car if we rough it up a little bit. So version 2 of this car is no mechanical changes because the thing drives absolutely perfectly and is so much fun. And yes, we do got to find a situation where I can really drive the hell out of this thing. But version 2 is going to be cosmetic changes where we get those rear fins and the rest of the body panels back on there securely and safely, so we can make sure that never happens again with them coming off. I think nuts and bolts is a real smart idea. I don't know why we didn't use those in the first place. And then we kind of just re-theme this bad boy. But the car is built. Everybody loved it at SEMA, and we had a great time with it. And little spoiler alert, you'll see in our SEMA wrap-up, I got to drive this thing in the streets of Vegas, and it was epic. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for subscribing. I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace!
Come on!